All right, folks, it's time for world politics. So I understand we've got a lot going on, so I'm going to bring in Rick Rosner and Sasha Starr, and we're going to talk about all of these things going on, including what's going on with the big, beautiful bill and all along those lines. But I'll bring in Rick Rosner, who, of course, has got a lot to report on what's happening and all along those lines, and we'll get to these conversations. So I guess despite the filibuster, we have a big, beautiful bill and all along those lines. So how are you doing today, Rick? And what's happening
Well, we're
in the
not
world that we need to talk
anticipated, but it seems inevitable. It passed the House 218 to 214. Now it goes to Trump, who will sign it tomorrow, which he wanted to do so he could sign it on July 4th. He's holding a rally in, I don't know, Oklahoma, I think, tonight, where he'll be bragging about all the good that this will do for America. Of course, it's not going to do a whole lot of good. Any cost savings by cutting trillions out of Medicare and food stamps will go to tax breaks for very rich people. Though the effects of, he'll also say no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. That's not entirely true. You get a partial exemption on the first few $1,000 of tips and overtime. Go ahead, Sasha.
Uh, well, I was not so much concerned with this bill. It was obvious to me that it would be passed, and it did pass. I was analyzing today a lot about the Trump's foreign policy, and
Mhm.
I was thinking a lot about this 36 hours raid on Iran of B2s and their successful, approximately and not verified, but believed to be successful bombing of Iranian nuclear reactor. And I started to think about how come there was no reaction of any kind from Russia, from China, from North Korea, from all this um, evil, axis of evil. There was none. And then I started to think about what's happening now, whereas the US withdrew support of Ukraine, both financial and the weapons, while Russia intensified its attacks on the front line and on the civilian targets, continue its terror strategy. All that led me to believe that there are a lot of information in internet and newspapers and everywhere else. You can read it, you can interpret it, but sometimes in politics there are not so obvious protocols, agreements. They are not made public, but certain things could lead you to believe that they are real and resulting in a switch of politics or new politics. And it seems to me that there was a pact between Putin and Trump, which is number one, US, Israel have a free hand to do anything what they want in the Middle East, including Iran and other Middle Eastern countries. Free hand, green light, call it any way you want. And in exchange, Trump allowed Putin to have a green light against Ukraine, all Europe, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, whatever it might be, pull out of NATO, but do it not openly to say, from tomorrow, US is out of NATO. No, he's not going to say anything. The deeds suggest exactly that. He doesn't have to say anything. Everything is already obvious. He is a traitor. He is completely broke. He's trying. He hasn't succeeded yet. Wait. He's trying to bring Ukraine on a plate to Putin. Okay, Vladimir, here is your Ukraine. You can do whatever you want, and all the rest of Europe is there. You want to take it, take it. It will not be on your way. You don't want to take it, leave it for now. Take it next year, next 5 years, whatever you please yourself. That's what my thoughts, and I think they're justified. And at least I'm content to have exactly that picture based on what's actually happening.
That makes sense. I agree with that. That any kind of enmity between Russia and Trump is kind of play acting. We know that Trump has been kind of in love with Putin for 20 years. When he started to go over there to try to do business, to do beauty pageants over there, the Trump likes a tough guy, and he was attracted by the business opportunities. And so, sure, that makes sense.
Well, he is, or he used to be a KGB asset. The first time he visited Moscow in 1987, and in the KGB documents, he is regarded as a highly perspective asset that has to be worked with, developed, and that's exactly happening. And in fact, after all this bankruptcy that he had, he was at one point, I think around 2000, he was worth minus $250 million. That was his net worth in 2000. And the way how he made it up slowly through money supplied by Russians, by Russian mafia, and he started to get out of this malaise. Without this money, he was nobody.
So let's clarify what asset means, because when I argue with my Trumpy friend Lance and say Trump is a Russian dupe, Lance says, you're claiming that Trump is a Russian spy, and which is bullshit. I'm not. A spy is one thing. A useful idiot is a different thing. Russia looks for all sorts of people around the world who can be manipulated to not be fully spies, but to be friendly with Russia, and and to be persuadable. And Russia's been doing this since it was the Soviet Union for 100 years. The Soviet Union kind of got its hooks into Hollywood for a while by sending ladies who would have sex to Hollywood parties, like because writers have always had a hard time getting laid in Hollywood. But if you meet a pretty lady at a party, and she bangs you, and she just happens to be a communist, maybe you'll think better of communists and you'll write, good stuff about the Soviet Union in your screenplay. There's a lot of experience doing that. And Trump is just the kind of idiot. Plus, like you said, Trump needed money. And if you're a Russian oligarch, billionaire, you need to get some of your money out of the country in case Putin quits being your friend. Because if he is, he'll take all your Russian assets away from you and maybe throw you in prison.
Well, there is a public admission of what was happening, because the Deutsche Bank paid penalties of 32 or 36 billion dollars for laundering money for Russians. And a lot of this money ended up in Florida condominiums and any other assets that Trump was peddling at that time. Now, being asset, what means KGB asset? It doesn't mean that he has to be a spy necessarily, because being a spy requires certain intelligence, certain skills, certain commitment, and not everyone can become a spy. Even if you wanted badly to become a spy, it doesn't mean that you will be. Maybe you just don't have enough skills and talent to be one, and Trump may just fall into exactly that category. But being an asset, it means that they can influence them, they can be in contact with him, check on him once in a while here and there, get connections through him with some other people who they consider could be useful in the future. That's what means asset. It's very, you're right, it's very different from being a spy, completely different.
Well, let's talk about the money just for a second in more specific terms. If you're an oligarch, if you grew up doing karate with Putin, and he's been your friend for 30 years, and he says you can run water utilities for Moscow and other, and all of us, after a while, you're worth $8 billion, but it's all in Russia. And you can buy great stuff in Russia, but that can all go away if you say the wrong thing to Putin. So you want to build a base outside of Russia so you can run away, and not so you buy a yacht for $100 million. You buy a penthouse in London and in Manhattan for $50 million apiece, and you don't care if you're getting screwed on the price, because you're getting your money out. If you take a little bit of a haircut, if Deutsche Bank charges you some kind of crazy middleman fee, it's okay because you've gotten some of your money out. And it doesn't matter if you have $8 billion, if you have 300 million outside of the country, that's plenty to live on.
It's only part of it being outside of Russia, another part being fully legalized, to be able to open a bank account in New York and have this money legally deposited in your bank account. And there are several steps have to be taken, because on this magnitude, it's not that you are coming to open an account and you put $100. When we are talking about millions and billions of dollars, the bank must do the due diligence, the source of your funds. You have to fully justify this came from here, that came from here. So if you are buying Trump's condo in Florida, you are paying $100 million, that could be justification to legalize. But you still have to explain where you
hold on, Nick, your voice is scrambled. Okay, sorry.
Chitovi, is it something with you to do? Oh, probably Nick.
I was on mute.
Yeah, probably Nick. Anyway, so you have to, I think maybe Nick disagrees with what all we're saying. So he's trying to correct
for Nick doesn't really disagree. Nick will disagree to get a discussion going, but Nick put his money where his actual opinions are, in Spain. He got the heck out. So, okay, so I've got a thing where America for the past 50 years has had our image of ourselves slowly eroded. So in the 70s, I was a Weeblo, which is a pre-Boy Scout, and then I was a Boy Scout. And even back then, it was kind of a weird thing to do. In the 50s, in early 60s, it meant something to be an Eagle Scout. By the 70s, it was kind of weird. But the idea that you would do World War II was the greatest act of public service that the U.S. ever did in history. We went over and we spent a ton of money and hundreds of thousands of lives to help save Europe from fascism. And there were plenty of people in the U.S. who didn't want to do it, but they were easily overruled. And for the next 20, 30, 50 years, we reaped the benefits because Europe was in ruins. And also we had the self-image that we were the good guys of the world. But over the past 50 years, that self-image has been eroded to the point where right now, a big chunk of Americans don't mind being cruel pricks with this alligator Alcatraz, where you take people whose crime is trying to be an American, trying to come to America, and you throw them in this joint where supposedly if they try to escape, they'll get eaten by strangled by a python or eaten by an alligator, and we're okay with that. So our image of ourselves as good guys has just gone to shit.
Well, in Europe, Steve Schwartzman, who heads the Blackstone Group, decided to invest $500 billion and decided that Europe is going to have better growth rates than the United States. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know, but I can tell you this. The dollar is taking a beating over here. It's just not funny to watch the dollar get plummeted relative to the euro. And also in Spain, I mean, they have like 80, 90 million visitors a year. France has about the same. And because of intercontinental travel being so cheap relative to what people earn today, that more people are deciding, hey, we're going to fly over here. But some of them are investing here like I am. But, other people won't. But I see it to be a good investment. So far, that has turned out to be true. But my real problem is the U.S. dollar, because I'm looking to purchase properties in the UK, and I'm getting 75 cents on the dollar. I mean, it's like you're getting hammered. And so the thing is, I might have to hold up on UK for a while and hope the dollar comes back. But with this new, big, beautiful spend as much as you want, Bill. And I was trying to make light of it, saying, well, it's only 300 billion a year over 10 years. That's not the problem. The real problem is if he does it again next year, it's another 3 trillion or 5 trillion. If he does it next year, because remember, he's got 4 years of this trash. You're talking $20 trillion in more debt. Okay, so the viewers need to think about this for a while. Yes, it's only 3 trillion over 10 years right now, but if you multiply, or 5 trillion, depending on how you look at it, but if you multiply it by 4, assuming he continues this for the next 4 years, okay, you're talking 12 to 20 trillion in additional debt on top of our 35 trillion debt. Now, I noticed that none of the other broadcasters have ever mentioned that. Your friends in both Congress, they were so math challenged. They didn't mention it at all. I mean, seriously, Rick, these people are so math challenged, they probably go to Vegas during the weekends thinking they're going to win. But if they really look at it objectively, and we'll talk about, I'm sure, again on David Walker's show, it's not 3 trillion. It's not 5 trillion. It's 15 to 30 trillion dollars.
There's another thing. There's not just the 15 trillion.
You're going to be broke.
We pay, and because of Trump's tariffs, interest rates are not going down. We just had a family friend who just bought a house with a mortgage rate of like 6.8%, which is just crazy. So,
well, I was just going to say, I mean, not even that. I mean, truthfully, Nick, it's about being honest, and we're not being honest, like you're saying.
No,
and
media did not report it properly.
People have tried to. So the thing is, people have tried to be honest, but because of the way our politics runs, what we're doing is we're sanitizing what is going on. They raised the debt limit $5 trillion. They wanted to get rid of it. Why did they do that? On top of adding in the $3 trillion when it was projected, when he first put out these ideas, remember it went through the CBO. The CBO at first said it was going to be $7 to $8 trillion. So then it drops down after the House and goes back up after the Senate. So they keep saying the CBO is going to be wrong. The CBO is going to be wrong because it's, again, politics. And then they're trying to sugarcoat it by saying we're ignoring the growth that's going to come from it. Well, they were correct the first go around with Trump with the CBO numbers. So they projected the growth in that piece the last time. But then right now it's going to be hard to truthfully project anything because you've got to take into account how many rural hospitals are going to go down. That is going to affect a lot of people, which means you have a lot more job loss, which means you have a higher unemployment. That's going to push inflation up more. That's going to also throw us into a whirlwind medically because, the other thing that they said is that they were going to, if the medical field doesn't get their act together, we're going to control prices there. Well, you're crying about price controls everywhere, and now you're claiming that that's the only way you're going to be able to fix it is through price controls, which is going to actually cause unemployment to go even higher. Then if you take into account when they talk about the Medicaid work or the Medicare work requirements, well, they did that in a few different states, and those states saw a higher unemployment kick in. And also it didn't help with anything, but caused a bigger problem financially. And these states that they're asking to cover Medicare can't do it because they're already financially broke. So those projected numbers of 15 to 20 trillion, as you just rattled off, I would even say that's a lowball number.
Right. Sasha's got a thing, and then I'll go.
Okay, yesterday I had financial show, Modern Investing, and there was my opponent, Dr. Milan Sambarak, who believes in investing in S&P 500 versus individual stocks, that mainly what I'm doing. And he asked me, if you buy American economy as a whole, which is 500, it's quite diversified holding and so on, do you believe that America is no longer will be the leading world's economy?
Hey, I do have a little comment on that, and
Yeah.
I can send you the study I did with Sasha. And this is the S&P 500 from 2000, which isn't that long ago, to 2010.
25 years.
Okay, 2000 to 2010. Was it that long ago?
Oh,
Okay, 2000 to 2010, not that long ago. Because our pension annuity that just gave a fixed rate of return beat the S&P 500 over a 10-year period.
oh my God.
Okay, so the thing is, the real problem we have in the United States is we just don't remember. Not only a math challenge, we don't remember. So this whole idea that is a fiction that the S&P 500 in the next 10 years can be a great investment.
All right, I got three things. One is AI might double the world's GDP in the next 15 years, and AI is going to be every place. So if you don't trust the US as a place to invest, then find AI stuff in Spain, in England, in China, wherever the frick you are. If the US doesn't get its shit together, it's not going to be the AI capital, right? That's thing one. Thing two is a lot of the cuts to Medicare and medical services are delayed till 2027 because the Republicans think we're so freaking stupid that they're holding off the cuts till after the midterms, like we're going to be fooled that everything's fine. And thing three is the dollar is, in terms of declining versus the rest of the world's currency, having the worst year since 1973. What happened in 1973? Nixon took the U.S. off the gold standard and let the dollar float freely, and it didn't frickin' float.
And then there was oil embargo, which didn't help a lot as well.
I was just going to say, well, just recently, Trump is trying to put the U.S. the way the whole, they're not trying to let it float freely. What they're trying to do is use cryptocurrency as a buoy. And that is how there were two countries, and I cannot remember their names right now, that got robbed basically got robbed from cryptocurrency. So that's what we're doing right now. And that's what Trump is wanting to do because he's trying to help his crypto bros who got him elected. But then also to talk about AI, we are going to be far behind on AI due to the fact that we're not going to invest in that as a country. And the big reason is because AI is a power hungry behemoth, and we are not going to invest in energy technology. And unless we invest in energy technology, AI, no matter how great of a coder you are to create the greatest AI, you need a ton of power behind it, and you need also water. So therefore, battery and energy technology right now with nuclear fusion, that's the big push right now is nuclear fusion to help cover AI or energy as a whole. So yeah, we're going to be way behind technology-wise. You have China taking off. You have India, Germany, all places overseas that are taking off. But we're sitting way behind because we want to invest now more into coal and oil.
So AI lives, if you see in a movie where they show a bank of computers that's the size of like 2 Costco's or 3 Walmarts, that's where AI lives. It lives in banks of freaking computers, furiously computing 24/7, burning a ton of energy, taking a ton of water to keep the whole thing cooled down. And we're going to be inept at it because we need to have, at the very least, nuclear tech. And that should probably be put in a place where, it's not in the middle of like the California coast, like where our reactor is. Reactors are going to be fairly safe unless they're run and designed by idiots. But can we...
Now, just check this out. Because remember when Trump went over to make this deal over in Saudi Arabia and all this other stuff that they were ranting and raving? It's this Middle Eastern deal. You know what one of the deals was? He's going to invest into he was going to have money to Saudi Arabia and to invest into that technology, that battery technology, and or the energy technology and into AI into that area.
Great.
Not into the U.S.
Great says Trump is pissed about outsourcing jobs. Here he is, he's outsourcing AI. And yes, Saudi is a great place to put it. They have a thing called the empty quarter, I think, which is a place where nobody can frickin' live. So yeah, put a bunch of reactors there. Sasha, Canada should put a bunch of reactors up in frickin' 100 miles east of Yellowknife.
Well, the thing is, Canada actually is leading us in terms of nuclear fusion technology. Canada they were the first ones to start off with the nuclear fusion record breaking. China then took the lead. Germany has now taken the lead on that now. So we are far behind every single country. And honestly, if you're going to run AI, you've got to have AI closed, because whoever controls the actual codes or the controls of that AI controls the actual input of that AI. So right now, for example, HBCU, the big thing with scanning technology, photo technology, voice recognition software, all the other stuff, it actually, due to the fact of the people that are actually coding these entities and actually putting together these models and the AI technology, even in like Google phones, because if you notice what Google did in a lot of their ads, they started putting up a lot of black people. Why? Because black people were left out. Minorities and skin tone colors were left out. So AI could not recognize black people in these photos, or different people with melanin in their skin in the photos. It could not recognize the actual voice inflections. And so they're having to add that in. So take, for instance, if you put this AI technology over in Saudi Arabia and they are able to code it however they want to and input whatever they want to, how's that going to affect the U.S.?
Yeah, I used to check IDs in bars in Colorado, which is like 95% white people. And all the machines at the DMV were set on white. So a black person had come up to me in the bar, give me their ID, and it looked like a cartoon where all you could see, it was like a black blob and 2 eyes. And I'm like, because it wasn't the machine. And I'm like, all right, I pretty much it was my reparations. I'd let people in with IDs where I couldn't, because I felt bad about 200 years of slavery. So yeah, you might only be 20, but go drink in my bar.
Oh, it's very interesting. This nuclear toxicity is saying that U.S. currently has a problem like all European Union partners. In Spain, we have been heavily committed to renewable energy. This is not me speaking for 12 years, but it is true. They are heavily committed to renewable energy here. U.S. is dependent on oil. And when the power system went down, here's the reason it went down. And of course, my friendly Republicans laughed at Spain when this happened. They're going, ha ha, it went down. No, you don't understand. What they did is they transferred their entire grid onto renewable energy, which is basically free. And unfortunately, the technology wasn't there at that time, so they had to try it again. But that's how close they are in Spain, having free energy for everybody. It's just weird. Now, in the United States, where you guys live, I don't think your energy is even close to 100% renewables.
No, plus
So
our grid is
more
shit.
progressive.
Like Texas
Who's
goes
more
off.
progressive, Spain or the United States? Talk to me, guys. Talk to me.
Well, I just like look at our grid. Look at our trains. Our trains go click. You know, I don't know if we have a train that goes 75 miles an hour in the whole U.S. Where all you guys, you got your trains that go 150 miles an hour.
Oh, they go 180. As a matter of fact, between here and Zaragoza and here in Madrid, you go 180 miles an hour. A train is standard in Spain. Now, how many trains do you guys have going 180 miles an hour?
Nothing. They go flying into the air because of the tracks go ka-tunk-ka-tunk-ka-tunk-ka-tunk-ka. Yeah, their tracks were 1935.
Yeah, and so the thing is, you're behind on having high speed trains. So is the U.S. really a leader, or are they a lagger right now? The only reason
kind of a spoiled baby. Let me talk about fusion, because Toby's talking about if somebody can make fusion work, fusion is clean. Fission, where you break fat atoms, that's what most reactors are. That's all the functioning reactors in the world break fat atoms. Those are dangerous because fat atoms are what make atomic bombs. But fusion is totally clean because you're taking hydrogen and turning it into helium. So yeah, if you have a problem with your fusion reactor, then you've got too much helium and you might have to make some party balloons.
So yeah, I mean, the fusion technology, even what Nick was just talking about, cell phone technology, all the other technologies, we are lagging behind again because of our political system and money, because we have different companies that take over other companies and they just want to. Google took over. There was a company that was working on sonar technology that was going to be placed in watches, where then you could actually utilize just your fingers to scroll through particular things on your watches. Well, instead of having another competitor out there, no, one company bought that, and that was Google that bought them. There are other companies that end up getting bought up that way just because they don't want that technology as a competition against what they're doing. And it happens, yes, across the globe, but across the globe also, you also got some other competitors. Like right now, there's a Chinese car company called BYD. I think I brought it up before. BYD right now is the number one car company or number one EV maker. They've beaten out Tesla. Well, they've been battling. I think they beat out Tesla. They started beating Tesla this year in terms of sales. BYD actually has a couple of, their electric cars. So they've got the same quality car as the Tesla 3 Model 3. That is the lower model that Tesla's selling for $30,000 right now. BYD is selling that same car, same quality, roughly about the same information on the inside, technology and everything. Obviously, some of the tech might even be a little bit better for that lower model, but they're selling it for roughly about $10,000. That company cannot sell in the U.S. due to the contracts that Tesla has put into place. Therefore, that company cannot run in the U.S. market. That is a problem, and that's why a lot of this stuff is outlandish in terms of expensive, and why we're lagging behind the times, because there's a lot of competition that we ignore. Ford, as a matter of fact, just recently said that they are humbled at the EVs that China is actually producing, because Xiaomi is making they have a car, but Xiaomi got hit due to their cell phone technology with the ban from the U.S. because the U.S. was saying that they are tracking people in the U.S. based on China having a slight or the Chinese government having investment in Xiaomi. Same thing with I think it was HTC got hit with that, and they are closed now. HTC doesn't really make any phones anymore. So there's a lot of technologies that we end up missing out on. And nuclear fusion, I don't even think we have a nuclear fusion reactor in the U.S.
I don't think, but let's talk about bikini technology. I get a lot of pop-up ads for bikinis because I click on bikinis. So I got an ad from Alibaba, which is a Chinese middleman between Chinese manufacturers and Americans who want to buy stuff for cheap. And so I did a joke on Twitter that I'm losing medical coverage, but I'm just going to wear $2 bikinis from China, and I'll save enough money on clothes, I'll be able to go to the doctor. But then I clicked around a little bit. I found $1 bikinis that look just as good as $50 US bikinis. China can kick our ass in manufacturing.
Yeah, but that's the thing is that when we're talking, we in the jobs report again, it'll get adjusted down because there are a lot of there's such distrust in what this administration is doing with the jobs, but. In this recent jobs report, which the tariffs are supposed to be the reason why we're doing tariffs to bring manufacturing. Well, we've lost manufacturing jobs. That's one of the big key things within that jobs report. But yes, there are. I think it was honestly Dave Chappelle. I think it was that did actually a joke about it, and which is very true in terms of look. I want to buy Air Jordans. I don't want to have to make the Air Jordans. So when people are talking about bringing back manufacturing, that's the manufacturing that he's talking about bringing back. Nobody's going to sit in a sweatshop to make a pair of shoes. Nobody wants to do that. And those jobs are not really the jobs that are not the jobs that people want, but those are the jobs that they're going to bring back.
Hey, Jacoby, hold on a second. Along those same lines, it's my understanding, even when we talk about the rail system and the railroads, that some of it, and even Rick, you might know this as well, it already exists. So we have the rails, they're just kind of buried, and they would have to be retrofitted and changed and upfitted. So we probably could do the rails even with the existing hidden rail system, because I know that there are rails that exist even here in Durham, North Carolina. There are probably rails in California. There are a number of rails that are woven throughout the country that probably can be used, but they've got to be upfitted and changed and kind of like modernized and everything.
You got to make sure you have all the right of ways. Then you got to dig up the tracks, and you got to replace them with high speed tracks, and somebody has to have the will and the idea that if they do it, they'll make a ton of money for doing it. And
that's it right there, Rick. It's about the money. If the money's not there, they're not going to do it. So you can design it. It's the want. And for example, the reason we went to space originally, that was out of defense. That's the only reason we went to space, because Sputnik got up and it was a race to space and that whole thing. We pumped tons of money in there. The reason the rail system, we won't do anything with the rail system is because people see no money there. And unless there's going to be money for somebody, or if it's defense, we'll throw money at it. But if there's no money in it, nobody's going to buy it. Nobody even cares.
U.S. was
speaking of that,
as a country for automobiles. Automobile is number one in U.S., unlike Europe, where there are a lot of cities, medieval architecture and landscape, and there are only tiny automobiles. People will take Italy, south of France, or even Spain. I'm not familiar with all Spain, but there are several places in Spain, I'm pretty sure, where also auto only up to, let's say, mid-size would be useful, not large automobiles. So in Europe, the train is very popular way of connecting cities. You're going from downtown of one city to downtown of another city, not travel to the airports. It simplifies and make travel, in most cases, very enjoyable, by the way.
Yeah, and people will pay
Like
money
going
to
to the airport and spending hours waiting there, and registration and checkup and check-in and all that stuff. So there's a big difference between US and Europe.
Plus the layout of the U.S., the western half of the U.S. is brutal for laying down trains because the distances are so crazy. You know, the major cities in Europe might be 60, 100 miles apart. I'm looking at Milan right here. Milan and Venice, these two kick-ass cities in frickin' Rome are 80 miles apart. You put a nice speedy train there that gets you there from Milan to Venice in 40 minutes. People will pay decent
It's
money.
more than 8 miles. It's more than 8
But-
All
miles.
right, let me see.
But I think Sasha actually hit on it again. Sasha hit on it again, and it comes back to money. Sasha, you pointed out it was automobiles is one of the biggest sellers. Automobiles is one of the biggest things in the U.S. If
Yeah.
you put in big trains, what loses money? Automobiles. So again, somebody's going to lose out. And right now, automobiles, you're not taking that money from them because that means oil.
No.
That means tons of stuff. No money is coming from those guys.
You're
But
right.
then you've got people like you, as both of you know, I get around by mass transit because there have been times that I've done the show off of the mass transit. And of course, there are efforts to get people to get on the mass transit because of the comfortability and everything. I think that it's a foreign company. It might even be Canadian for all I know and everything. But Flixbus, I think, bought Greyhound and everything along those lines. And of course, if you look at the advertisement for Flixbus, they talk about you can get to New York round trip for less than $200 and stuff like that. And they have internet on the bus and 2 stories, and you can rest comfortably and all along those lines. So they're trying to advertise that you can get to where you want to go comfortably, and it's got all the amenities of home, so you can do your work and everything while you're on this long bus ride.
Mark, again, it's all about money. Again, check this
Right.
out. Automobiles being, as Sasha points out correctly, one of the biggest sellers. Do you know what else makes money off of automobiles? What happens when you park downtown? Do you have to pay money?
You got to pay
So-
money, and then
So
but
if
the
you
other people
get
that are making
mass
money
transit
is
in there, if you throw in mass
Yeah.
transit, what money are you taking away?
Yep. But the other thing that's making money, and I know that Nick is sometimes a big fan of it, sometimes he's not and everything, is the whole notion of the solar cars. I just went out earlier today with a friend of mine who's got one of those EV type cars and everything, and he was pointing out to me the EV charging stations that are nearby here, and some of them are very fancy EV charging stations, and there was this notion that we're going to have more of those all over the country. With what that's going to do to the gas stations, and does that mean that we're going to lose gas stations, and are they eventually going to be replaced by a whole collection of EV charging stations if everybody goes to EV? And I'm not saying that's happening right now, but could it happen in the future?
I mean, it could, but also, the gas companies are going to invest in that energy market anyway, so they're going to already corner that market.
Right.
But what you've heard, you know what the gas tax is? What does the gas tax pay for? So now, how do you cover those roads? How do you cover those bridges? How do you cover all that extra stuff? It's so complex in terms of everything being paid for particular ways, but it just has to be figured out. And if there's no money in it, again, if you're taking money from somebody, that person's going to really go against you. And how you going to cover that? How you going to cover that bill that they're going to lose? Are they willing to lose billions of dollars?
Sasha, I did screw up. It's not 80 miles Milan to Venice. It's 175 miles. So you're right.
Yeah, you're right. But still, even 175, these trains, like bullet trains, they can do it in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
It's very pleasant journey, and if you fly, it will take you 5 hours. By the time that you will travel to the airport, check in, go to the flight, considering that the flight will depart on time, which is sometimes not true, and then you will fly, and then you have to check out, and you have to pick up your luggage, and you have to go to pick up a cab and travel to your hotel. And
But if you take the train out, you go right from the train to the subway, and
yeah, that's all true. Yeah. So obviously there are, but again, it's a European model. It works in Japan and works in China, believe it or not. And somehow it doesn't work in the U.S. Unfortunately, what can you say? It just the country is not made for train
Just
travel.
yes or no, Gary, to wrap up.
Okay,
all right,
Yeah.
thank you. See you
Not
tomorrow.
made the same country.
bye bye.
Bye.
All right.